Did you read a lot of the Marifa last time? Not just- not so much. So, Dhulnoon al-Misri, an Egyptian mystic who first used the term Marifa, distinguished knowledge is of two kinds: knowledge on the tongue, a proof against man, and knowledge in the heart, that which benefits. So, knowledge is of two kinds: knowledge on the tongue, which means that which is conceptualizable, expressible, and then that works towards our detriment because it converts even the beauty of life into a very primitive truths, into a very primitive conceptual construction. And what is the biggest problem with the mind's narrative? So it says all of these people are sitting here and talking about satsang. Yeah. You can say, okay, the room has so many lights. The topic is boring or interesting. But in all the narrative, what is never included? The heart, the presence, and the awareness itself. So it's like describing the waves without ever looking at the ocean, the vastness and the depth of the ocean itself, but just looking at the very surface level movements on the surface of consciousness and trying to get patterns, like looking at clouds and making patterns, but never looking at the sky, or never remembering the sky is the substratum on which the clouds can appear. So, in our conceptual narratives of our lives, what is missing is the. So, even if we include God conceptually, we cannot include the live presence of God. Even if we keep saying satsang was shared and God was there. So, even that narrative, which may be an improvement on the initial, the freshness, the aliveness of God's presence is never captured. And if, like we were saying last time, God's presence is the antidote to whatever may be. In the unborn, all things are perfectly resolved. So, if God's presence is the antidote to whatever Maya may throw up, then the forgetting of God's presence, the non-inclusion of God's presence, is the disease of the human condition. So, in our knowledge in words, when we try to convey what is, using our intellectual, conceptual understanding, we forget the most important part. That is the reality of God, the reality of the highest self, and the reality of His presence. And that is why the sages said that the knowledge which is on the tongue is to the detriment of all of us. Yes. And it is the knowledge of the heart which is beneficial for all. So when we forget to include the heart, that means that we forget to include that place where the knowledge of presence is found, then the rest of the knowledge that we have is a complete waste of time. It is uh, the cause of all trouble and to our detriment, no matter how high sounding we may try to make it or how insightful we may try to make it to express it in the most high or insightful way, does not cure it of the absence of God. That is why conceptual thinking is called fruitless. Huh? Huh? To, to live in God's will, we have to live in His presence. To acknowledge is to bring us closer to Him in that way, but just empty of ourselves and relying only on how we are moved by His presence is to live in God's will initially before the will becomes more and more apparent in terms of direction. A loving, humble, patient direction may start appearing to us at some point, but we must not rush into concluding that because it could also be a mind trick. So, as long as we can doubt whether it is the mind or the heart, we must let go. Just keep letting go. And to allow ourselves to live empty in the innocence of a child is also to live in God's will. So, are we seeing how conceptual knowledge is a two punch? You see, uh, two very detrimental things conceptual knowledge does for us. One is that it negates that which is most important. Just forget about God's presence and that the highest self, which is pure awareness itself, is never mentioned. Or even if it is mentioned, it's mentioned in a retrospective way and not like a fresh aliveness. And secondly, conceptual knowledge is terrible at determining even the content of phenomenal experience. So basically, to put it in non-academic language, forget about God and mess up your idea about what is happening in your life. Both these things it does. Mhm. Until we are attached to those notions of what is happening to me, we are caught in the checker guy mode, then we find it impossible to be empty for God. So in satsang, although many words may be spoken, but maybe they can just be replaced by just be empty, just be empty, just love, just love God, be with God. A worldly seeker is obsessed with their worldly narrative. A spiritual seeker is obsessed with their spiritual narrative. The end of seeking, which is what everyone is seeking, seeking the end of seeking, is to let go of all narratives and allow God's presence, God's love, God's light, God's will to determine everything. Let me continue. There was some beautiful thing also. So, knowledge is of two kinds that we spoke about. The latter is recognition, not information. Knowledge of the heart is recognition, not information. This is a short but explosive line. What is our obsession? What does this mean? What is the meaning of my life? Where am I going? What is my purpose? Meaning, meaning, meaning is a constant grasping. And we fill in the box of grasping at meaning with conceptual information. So if I said to you that the distance between X and Y is 100 centuries, the distance between point A and point B is 100 years. What happens? It's confusing. Unless you will say, okay, he's talking about light years and not talking about light years. So the unit of measurement of knowledge has to change from the number of concepts that we have to the silent heart transmission, which is immeasurable. Getting it? So it's a recognition and not information. How do we measure knowledge in the world? You have a geography exam. So in the exam, they will ask you pieces of information and how much you know the capital of this country, the capital, the continents, all of these things are what pieces of information. Mhm. So that has to change. Our grasping at meaning, our grasping at information, then becomes a resting in recognition. Now, you we don't have to squeeze information out of recognition. We may try to make an understanding out of it too soon, but it has to flower in its own time. Is it? So when does spiritual frustration come? When we are not able to squeeze information out of recognition. Because the mind can bully us by saying, okay, suppose all of this is true. Tell me, what is it that you understood? Getting? What have you understood? Where have you gotten? Yeah. And we try to convert our, when we try to force our recognition and try to make it an understanding in the form of information. Yes. Frustration is you're not able to information. Can't squeeze information out of it. Yes. Now, how do you do that before you come to is in this you're presupposing that recognition is always the case? Yes. Yes. And how can we say that? In what way? Yes. So if you can see that you're not understanding, then you're in the place of recognizing. Got it? Then you're not recognizing. No, I know, I'm just messing with you. I'm messing with all of you. So, if you're getting a sense, no, when the attempt is not to understand, when the attempt is resting, the body doesn't have to look yogic in that process, but when we are empty of ourselves, you see, then know that we are in the photo booths of the Atma. When we let ourselves go, then he picks us up, whether we like it or not, or whether we can sense it or not, whether we can feel it or not. You see? But when we take control, then he gives us time and says, okay, you try your own way first. I'm here when you're ready. You see?
Mira, you have posted something today, means it's saying that it will flower in its own time.
Now that experience, it's like this. Behind all that, it always is. It always is.
Yes. Yes.
Like in whatever capacity they present us.
So it is not that newer realms are being created within us. You see, it is that these realms are already there. The heart temple is there, but we are cleaning it up. We are renovating it, so to speak. How? By resting in it. So we rest in the recognition instead of relying on information.
Recognition seems like something perceptual, some new perception.
That's what, because language is limited. No? Language is not designed for these realms. You see. So we try and find the best words to depict what is being conveyed. So if you want to elaborate, we could say a non-perceptual, non-sensory recognition, which is the heart recognition. We've spoken about modes of knowledge, conceptual knowledge, perceptual knowledge, and intuitive knowledge.
It's like that word you say and love comes up. That seems like a new recognition. Something very distinct.
Yes, but with what instrument is the question? And that can be tricky because silence as love is recognized only purely intuitively. The outpouring of love may be recognized even perceptually. You see? So, to remain empty for God, that is called an act of love towards God. But the mind can say, but I don't feel any love in the process, at least initially, before the outpouring happens. So how is it then an act of love?
Who gave peace? Without love, you would be at work.
Yes, but beyond even needing to infer it, it is seen as love intuitively in that holy place. Mhm. Love beyond just the feeling of love allows us to surrender, allows us to be patient in this. So if you don't try to squeeze information, then we can just rest in the recognition. What is the attempt to squeeze information? Just like to force an understanding by working our intellect. You're familiar with the process. All of us constantly do it. We're trying to resolve a problem, we're trying to figure it out, like trying to solve the spiritual equation. And because we don't find a solution, then that can sound frustrating on the spiritual path. That's what you were saying earlier. When we try to juice information, a set of beliefs, a set of meaning out of our spiritual practices, our spiritual lives.
You say I want to come to satsang is a condition.
Now, say again.
You say sometimes that wanting to come to satsang is a insanity. That's that non-perceptual not.
Exactly. Because you don't know. You say, I don't know, but I just had to come today. You see? And for a non-spiritual truth like I think God doesn't love me. You see? We have to think that information. It's never a recognition that God doesn't love me. Like Papaji said, to be happy, you don't need anything. But to be unhappy, you need at least one thing. Okay? That's a very uh, broad way to say something which is very deep. The way it is conveying this, that you need at least one piece of information from your head to be unhappy. But to be happy, what do you need? Okay, you can ask.
Notice, can you say more on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you say more on the silence and love part? And then the outpouring can be.
These are more very difficult things to say. But like the act of love being to return to the emptiness. It doesn't mean that every time we return to empty, we immediately experience an outpouring of a felt love. And yet it is an act of love. Because to be able to meet silence, the silence within, not the absence of sound waves, but the silence within as love itself is an intuitive sense that we get, is Atma Gyan, it's knowledge from the spirit itself.
Trying to hold on to that outpouring if you don't know the intuitive, and that's part of the process.
The outpouring itself, if you try to hold on to it, with what tool would you hold on to it? Just with attention, isn't it?
I've heard that I have to be conceptually empty.
When you're conceptually empty, then you taste the outpouring of love, for example. Then if you say, I have to hold on to this love, we can hold on to it uh, like in the intuitive sense of the love, or try to keep our attention fixed on that love.
It should not disappear. I don't know how the mechanics. I heard mechanics is not clear, but it should not disappear. If it disappears, try to bring it back.
It's all right. So, how you pronounce this? Al-Kushairi? All the Sufi experts can tell. Al-Kushairi writes, Marifa is a light that God casts into the heart of his servant, by which he knows God through God. Is a light that God casts into the heart of his servant. What does this servant mean here? Simple. Huh?
In a temple.
In a temple. Servant literally meaning that one who wants to follow his master's will. So the one who wants to follow God's will. You see? Which is the very definition of being a Muslim, is the one who wants to follow God's will. You see? Then God casts the knowledge of the heart onto one who wants to cast away his will and live in God's will.
We empty ourselves out again and again.
Yes, and we cannot hold on to our want and be empty at the same time. And because we are, like we were saying, obsessed with doing and what is going to happen and agency, so then it comforts us to know that once we are empty of our will, then God's will comes into operation. Now we are consenting to God's will. We don't want to start that debate again about whether it's always in operation or not, but we are consenting to divine will. Yeah,
Like you said, we have to do our bit.
exactly. And in the form of giving consent for the divine to act through us. What happens to the servant? Marifa is a light that God casts into the heart of his servant. So what is the type of light this is? It's a silent, unperceivable light. In the sense that the sages have said that it is a light which is too bright for us to see. Not the absence of light. If suddenly the light of a camera flash or something goes on, then you have to, because it's too strong for us, so we turn away, we cannot perceive. We don't have the capacity to perceive that much light. You see, so this light is compared to that. It is not the same, of course. So this is the light of Atma Jnana, Brahma Jnana, Marifa, Atma Darshan, self-knowledge, capital S, which is given by God Himself, by the Atma itself. In our heart temple. So have you noticed that across all religions, across all traditions, it is always said that in the heart it is received. So a silent, unperceivable light, but unmistakably intuitively known as light. Casts into the heart of his servant, by which he knows God through God. He knows God through God. That it is aparoksha anubhuti. It is direct. God cannot be known through any other medium but himself, in the form of his presence, in the form of his Atma, in the form of his spirit. So, what have we said so far? We said either we can hanker for information, which we think is knowledge, or we remain with this heart knowledge, which God casts upon our hearts. And he is known through himself. So when the ego is central in our equation, then we want to know more and more about the life of this me. But when God becomes truly central, then we just want to be in this light. This is the ontological. What is ontological? What exists? What is existence itself? What is the nature of existence, nature of being? So the attempt to grasp at being philosophically is where the origin, the word came from. Ontology is the study of being, if it can be studied in that way at all. So this is the ontological reversal at the heart of Marifa, which means that we were trying to, okay, let's read it fully. The seeker discovers they were always the sought, temporarily veiled by the illusion of separation. So that famous, I went looking for God and found myself. I went looking for myself, I found God. So we went looking for the existence of either ourselves or God, and we find that actually there is no distinction, no separation, no duality. Remember that the no duality is the recognition part, not the information part. Mhm. The minute no duality becomes information part, except when it is shared as a pointer, that is where all the trouble will start. Mhm. So, a safe, what is it called? Seat belt, a safety belt is the famous saying that either I have pride of knowledge or I have knowledge of pride. As long as that is not forgotten, we are okay. So, though known al-Misri describes the stance of the Gnostic, and the Gnostic, remember that the Gnostic in the Sufi way of Gnostic is very different from the Christian Gnostic and is definitely very different from the Indian Gnostic. So, although the words may have the same root, they are not to be confused as the same. The Sufi Gnostic is the one who relies on this inner recognition, relies on the heart recognition. Mhm. I don't know how the words were used across cultures, but different uses across religions and traditions. So when they say the Gnostics outward is with creation, but his inward is with the truth. There was another beautiful way of saying this. Did we post on the contemplation bit? Feet are in the world, and heart is with the presence. He said it's an addition to before enlightenment, chopping wood, fetching water, after enlightenment, chopping wood, fetching water. But I feel like this addition is good to me that our feet are in the world, that therefore our outer is participating in the world, mostly as if nothing has really changed. But our heart now belongs to the presence itself, versus earlier it belonging to the world. So, in the Bible, it is said that our heart is where our treasure is. So now our treasure is God. So our heart belongs to God. So what is our treasure? And if our treasure is worldly, know that that is the seed of suffering. And if our treasure is God, then know that that is the seed of this Marifa, self-knowledge, Atma. Does the seed of suffering look attractive or repulsive? The tree looks repulsive, of course, but the seed usually looks very attractive. Otherwise, how will Maya work? Isn't it?
How do we allow the spider in Maya's spider that quickly creates the web?
Yes, that's what he is talking about. That when we rely on information rather than recognition, you see, when we rely on fresh recognition of God's presence, moment after moment, our life is lived in that presence, then there's no room for that spider, as you called it. You see, that serpent, spider, insect, whatever you want to call it, is that same voice of egotism, of pride, of me first. So it has to be washed continuously. We have to wash ourselves inwardly, continuously with God's presence, His name, His love, His light.
And that's what we call awareness. Deep attention.
That which is aware even of this presence, of this light, which is imperceptible, that which is aware even of attention or the movement of attention, that is awareness.
Bird.
Yes, that is the third bird, the witnessing, which is unchanged no matter what the content of the story is. See, even untouched by the second bird, which is consciously being and perceiving the first bird.
So presence
Is the consciousness, the conscious part.
which of these could be the Jivatma? If you have to give Jivatma,
Yeah. You would say the second bird or a sort of uh, depending on the way we narrate the story, depending, it could be like uh, a body part or an aspect of the second bird or the second bird. So if you look at the entirety of consciousness as the second bird, then a part of that is what we define as the conceptual separation of between the Paramatma and the Jivatma. Note that it's a conceptual separation. You see? But this, is it too much? When this conceptual separation happens, and at some level, it remains for all of us that in that minutest quantity, the tanmatra of it always remains, which is why servitude is the only safety for the Jivatma, who doesn't actually exist. So it's all round and round, I know. But our job is to remain safe in His love and light. You see? So when uh, a conceptual separation can then be replaced by a conceptual oneness, you see, it is still not oneness. So we have to be very careful of uh, that pride which can come as a result of a conceptual oneness. So look at it this way, that the entirety of the separation dissolves except one grain worth of separation remains. And that grain is kept safe by keeping it in servitude. Otherwise, that grain can become the seed of a new identity and a new spiritual identity, or a spiritual achiever or a spiritual finder identity. So only, it is said, only Narayan is Maya Rahit. See, which means that only God himself is fully free from Maya. That is why it's good to remember that the seed, the grain of pride will always be with us. If we water it even with our spiritual, conceptual understanding, it will become spiritual ego. And spiritual ego is the worst ego. It's the worst ego, because if you look at Ravan, if you look at Hiranyakashipu, if you look at all the worst ones, what are they afflicted by? Spiritual ego. They are claiming conceptually a oneness with God, not a heart oneness with God. That I am special because I am God. Is it?
They ask for those boons that this one can't kill me. And that means they want to keep their identity,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
feel eternal.
Exactly.
Like they want that, they want to feel.
The ego wants what? To become as godlike as possible, or fully God if possible. Which means immortality, and
all the power and everything, but with their
immortality and to be worshipped. Is it? So if you look at both Ravan and Hiranyakashipu, they wanted their praja to only worship them. So if God's name was taken, they would get very upset. See?
They want to be adored, like they want everyone to, but they do through force. Through free.
Yeah. The mark of the Gnostic is that he is rich without gold, strong without soldiers, and safe without fortresses. Up to this point, effort is needed. Discipline, patience, trust, so many other things that we've spoken about in Satsang. But Marifa is never taken. It is only received. What does this mean? That even if you are the most disciplined, the most patient, the most trusting, the most faithful, it can never become something that we can demand. In any case, if you were demanding that we are not, then we are not all of these. But there is no eligibility criteria that you say, okay, now once I've met it, I am entitled to it. Yeah,
That is faith.
exactly. It arrives when there is nothing left in you that could resist it. So even the expectation of getting should not be there. That is when it arrives.
Just trying to get rid of yourself. And it's not the expectation of getting God. It's just like suicidal or hatred of yourself. Somewhere,
Because that would need some new conceptual getting. To be empty doesn't need to, we don't need to be suicidal because we're not getting rid of life. We are getting rid of that which gets in the way of life. See, we're getting rid of our pride, we're getting rid of our reliance on conceptual information, which seems to blunt the light of our life. So we're not getting rid of life. We are allowing life to shine and getting rid of all the impediments by being empty. That is why to be empty is actually the most natural, not the most unnatural. Like this, what is naturally here? Allow that. Don't add on anything. Don't add on anything. Don't add anything at all. Just allow yourself to rest in this, which is naturally present. Don't add any understanding. Don't add any doing. Just empty. Basically, don't add any identity. And just follow instead of like, can we only follow once we understand?
Right.
This following is different. Mostly in the world, we can only follow once we understand. This following is instant. Instant. Don't wait to understand. Just follow.
Is it like an instinct of a dog?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Could be, could be.
Does it think?
I feel like, at least in my case, Aslan is always, even if you call him, he's always evaluating all his options. Acha, one treat in his hand, one tissue paper to tear up there, and something else. So he looks at all his options, then says, okay. Before I had him, I would have wholeheartedly agreed. Now that I see him in operation, it's not that wholehearted.
But when you're saying I don't wait to understand this fellow, what you're trying to, I mean, what I'm
Yeah.
understanding is don't try to understand what it means to be entertaining the deal, just leave. Don't
Just
get
jump
into the
without like how to jump, which foot goes first. Am I jumping? Am I? So just he said very nicely that recognition, not information. But what is that? Then that's grasping for information.
No, what about just trying to follow God's will without knowing how to do it? But that trying also we will call that, that jump.
Whatever you can do before the click, you have that much time. Do whatever you want right now. After that, time out. Time. Time. And the mind says, huh?
Impossible.
Impossible. Huh? But impossible. But what about me? So remember that the grasping for information is about me. The resting in recognition is about God. Rumi said, the knower is not he who speaks of God, but he in whom God speaks. So the knower is not the Gnostic in this case, the Atmagyani or the Jivan Mukta, whatever you want to call them. Is not just one who merely speaks of God. She is the one in whom God speaks.
I want to hear a conversation between the Ananta that was before the hot seat thing with Mr. Baba and this one. There seems to be nothing. No common ground, no common language, no. It's just this one is it's all bouncers. And that one I don't know if it's still there somewhere. What happened?
So, before we try and answer that, the last few minutes is the point of why everything else was shared. So what is the difference? So suppose that we spent about what, maybe we spent about an hour talking, or maybe we spent about an hour talking. So suppose that we spent that hour in gossiping or just talking about some worldly thing, then would the gift of these last few minutes have been received? Most likely not. And sometimes when the spirit arrests us, then maybe, but most likely it doesn't happen that way. So this is what is called the eating part, or what I am calling the eating part. First part of the cooking, and some eating happens during the cooking also, like the chef is cooking and tasting at the same time. So we become quiet when we hear something, all of that. But this, whether it happens in satsang time or post satsang, is the actual tasting of the spiritual truths that have been discussed. So what happens is what we talked about, the hearing or the reading, and then the sort of reflecting, the juicing out of what is heard, the juicing out of uh, the aphorisms or the words provided by the sages. So we juice them, we make them more consumable, and then we have to realize somewhere, it doesn't have to be like a conscious recognition that I can't get this by myself. So if it's a spiritual truth, know that only spirit can teach it to us. So when that helplessness comes, then we must become prayerful inwardly, at least, even if we don't say an outer prayer. And then if we can fall into contemplation, or what in India is called meditation. But that nididhyasana is very important. Otherwise, conceptual seed, which is the pointer, will never become the spiritual fruit. So, what is the way to convert what you call the bouncer into something which is met? Will not happen through necessarily through a greater understanding of the words, but in a innocent, helpless, prayerful, patient sitting. inwardly. So then the question can be asked saying, if the sitting inwardly is all that is needed, then why do we have to speak about all of this? Because as you notice that without this fuel, the spiritual fuel provided in the words of the sages, we may find it very difficult to just sit. So the way to really learn spirituality is in the just sitting part, the eating part. But we notice that once it is propelled by the fuel of the words of the sages that we are reading, or any sages that you may be reading, then it allows you to dive deep into your heart and stay there for a longer time till you become very seasoned at it, till you become very practiced at it, where you just close your eyes and everything dissolves. Till then, we need the reinforcement of satsang. So, take an example of a bouncer. What are you finding is a bouncer?
I won't use it at all. I mean,
Yeah. So, take an example of what is a bouncer.
asking for information is about me resting in God as a
Yeah. So, let's take this that grasping for information is about me. The resting in recognition is about God. You see? Now, in what way can it be met?
have the recognition.
And you can have, or you can say, okay, now when I'm trying to grasp at even the meaning of this, then who is it really about? You see? And when I'm just resting, whether now or when, whatever I may remember of resting, then there is no me really to put the focus on in that resting in recognition. So you may reflect on this line in this way. You see? And even after reflection, if you understood it, then it's gone waste. Even after reflection, it must remain at some level a mystery. And that, instead of becoming a frustration, must become a prayer saying that I can't get this with my mind intellect. But somewhere I'm attracted to these words. Somewhere they feel they ring true. God, please reveal the truth of these words to me. And then they may be met in that deep place. So we have to get that this is the spiritual project. We have to become empty either through inquiry or through prayer or these contemplative conversations. But some way to meet spirituality which appeals to us the most in our hearts, we must follow that. Because that is where the truth will be met as a recognition. It's very meta in a way that this line is a practical project as well as encapsulates the essence of what is the attempt to try and communicate. Mhm. Yes, but that in a way that is the point. That just by the hearing of it, it won't be met, and therefore the juice is still alive in it. If the juice is not alive, then you would have discarded it, as everything else. Like there may be so many other things which somebody else would have resonated with. So they may have juice in something else. This has some juice for you. So use that till it becomes more and more apparent in your heart. Because if you were just to understand it, then it's really gone to waste.
Right? Even after the prayer, the helplessness remains, isn't it? You don't try to get rid of it. You can't get rid of it.
Yes, can't get rid of it.
That's Vidyasana, to remain.
Yes, in the sense that it propels us into Nididhyasana. In Nididhyasana, we are empty of everything and of all ideas, empty of even prayer, everything. But when we become helpless, that means we've let go of our devices, you see, and surrendered. We've laid down our arms, so to speak. Mhm. Then we get rest in Nididhyasana or in contemplation, meditation, whatever you want to call it. Huh?
We'll go to the next part. Helplessness prayer till that.
Yeah.
After that,
After that, we cannot go. After that, we cannot go. We can only attempt to go. We can attempt to remain empty. Like we can consent. What is attempt to remain empty? We can consent to remain empty. But you can't force yourselves to. And you can force yourself to keep your eyes closed, but you can't really go within with, with force. So, what gets you to that? Does inquiry do it? Does prayer do it? Does nothing do it? It's all right. Even if nothing, we are all waiting. Does bhajan do it? Whatever does it. Like say that when I used to post the poll, you were saying that you're praying more than 4 hours. So what was that? Was that ADS or was that inquiry?
it's
Okay. So was there no what we are calling eating happening in that?
perceptual, new perceptions.
Uh-huh.
It's like completely non-perceptual.
So for 4 hours, there's always something going on. Why don't you experiment with this and tell me next time? Because that would be very difficult. For the full hour, 4 hours, there was something or the other going on. Are you all getting a sense of what it is? And how to check on these things? Like try to notice more and don't go with your mind's reports usually. Because the mind's reports are designed to deepen our spirituality or make us run. We used to always say no, that the thief will not say, "Come catch me, I'm the thief." You'll always throw some stones over there, make some noise there, saying, see, the problem is with that. It's not with me. So try to notice tomorrow or whenever you get the chance to pray, and from the noticing, see what you are able to report with minimal mind interference. And so with this mask, I can't tell what your expression is. I'm just imagining a big smile.
Gaping at you. What is it? Both is wide open and whatever.
I want to come, you can come.
Yeah, Namaste, Father. Father, for me, there's no too much distinction between eating and cooking. That's what I wanted to ask you, because when the cooking is happening, when the ADS is going or the chanting is going, and then there'll be silence for 10 minutes, and then there'll be some gratitude and tears, and then I notice mind comes in to distract. So then I again start with the chanting and the ADS. So it's like interspersed. And that's what I wanted to ask you, Father, because I cannot report yet that I have done half an hour of cooking and half an hour of eating because it's so mixed.
Yeah.
And the moment I feel that if I'm sitting with the gratitude, with the tears, and sometimes just silence, then mind doesn't stay quiet as well, Father, and it just takes away the attention very quickly. But when there is chanting going on or when there is ADS going on, then the mind is somehow quiet, Father. How does that?
Exactly. So in a way, the point of the chanting or the sharing of spiritual truths, whether it's God's name or we talk about some truth about God, both for those who are spiritually inclined will have the effect of taking us beyond the mind into a deeper spiritual place. But also what happens with chanting is that the attention gets like the trunk of the elephant is given a stick to hold on to, so it doesn't create havoc in the marketplace. You must have heard that example. So the mantra, the chanting can serve that purpose as well, which is helpful. So I want to talk about the eating part a bit more. So this is the cooking part. We are chanting or we are listening to satsang, and then we may be praying, we may be reflecting, we may be praying. So in the eating part, now don't get more confused, okay? We can keep talking about this for the next few weeks till it becomes more clear. In the eating part, it can seem like there are two parts. You see, where one is we are feeding ourselves, which means that we are trying to keep a weight on our faculties so they remain inward facing. Can you relate to that? Like if I say remain inward facing now, you can attempt to do it, isn't it? You close your eyes and then you will do something. Attention will go inwards, but it's not just attention, something just actively tries to go within.
Yeah.
So that is like we are feeding ourselves. That is the eating part, where we're deliberately trying to keep our faculties inward facing. And then there's a eating which God Himself or God as the mother herself is feeding us, where it seems like I don't need to put the weight anymore. Something has gotten hold of all my faculties and pulling them into my heart. You see? So, so then that becomes a great gift because God Himself is then doing the eating for us or feeding us this spiritual beauty, this spiritual food. Where, so can you all notice just within, and if not now, at least at home when you try, that when you actively try to remain inward facing, there's like a, it's like you put a slight weight upon your faculties so they go inward. You see? And then there's a point where you just effortlessly, you see, something is just. Can you all, how many can relate to what I'm saying? And don't just say so that then I can share properly. You can all relate? No, not relate? No? What about Zoom? How many can relate to what I'm saying? Thank you, thank you. So, okay, we'll get to this point. So at least we can relate to the first part where when I say, okay, go inward now, it's not completely helpless. No? You can say, okay, close eyes first. You can notice that there's a deliberate attempt to remain inward facing with our attention, and we don't want to have any taste of any phenomenal experience. So this part you can experiment with. And the next part is just by God's grace. And you will find that you may not even notice where it became light, where God Himself has now pulled you in. And it is natural to stay inward like that. You don't find any effort towards turning your faculties inward. It's just a gift of God. So suppose all of you tell me, or some of you tell me that the first part itself seems too difficult. You see? The first part itself seems too difficult. Then that's all right. But don't leave your active cooking, the chanting, the prayer, the inquiry, without at least trying it for a minute or two. See? Because in a way, it is like building a spiritual muscle within us. The more we practice, the more the muscle memory kicks in. And we deepen every time we practice, even though there may be distractions which come over and over.
Sorry, Father, did you mean don't go to chanting without trying for a minute?
Don't leave the bed or whatever chair on which you were chanting. Don't leave the prayer till you try this at least for a minute or two. Yeah? Just like that, even if it feels effortful and a lot of distractions happen, treat them as gifts. When you see yourself caught up in a distraction, then you notice, then you can return. And every time you return, it is turning towards God one more time. You see? So it's a beautiful then gift that you're giving to yourselves, that you may use your distractions in this beautiful way, that if 100 distractions come, you can turn to God 100 more times than if no distractions came. You see? So in the deliberate part of our recollection, in us collecting our faculties and remaining inward facing, we may find that distractions are coming, and there's nothing to feel bad about. As long as your intention is to be with God, just keep returning to God. So the subtlest returning is just returning with intent and attention. So that's like a glance that we change our glance towards God again. Then if this, and you don't have to be egotistical about being super subtle. Okay, there is no extra points given if you turn towards God just in the most subtle way. Yeah. So if you find that it's difficult, then use God's name. So if you're using Ram, then just say Ram inwardly or outwardly. The point of using the name of God and to continue to use it in our prayer is that it gets more and more spiritually charged. And by spiritually charged, it means that it allows us to return to our hearts. Then, if in our honesty we notice that one Ram is not enough, then we say it 7 times. If you find that is also not working, then say it along with your breath. In breath is Ram, 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 Ram. And out breath is Ram, Ram, Ram. If you find even that doesn't work, then use your full ADS prayer. So return to the cooking for as long as it takes till you find that you're able to go within your heart. Are you getting a sense? It takes some getting used to. It takes some practice. And why is this so important? Why can't we just hear satsang? You see, why can't we just do the prayer? Why can't we just inquire, who am I, 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 who am I? Or even sincerely, who am I, who am I, who am I? You see? But if we don't go within, where will the answer be revealed? You see? Then what you'll end up doing, because you'll get frustrated after a long time of even inquiry, you'll say, who am I? Then when the mind says, I am awareness, you will say yes. And you'll think that you received the answer from God. You see? But till you learn to go within your intuitive center, your heart temple, and till you learn to hear the wordless heart transmission of knowledge, that I am awareness will never translate into the recognition that I am awareness. So what else you'll end up doing is you'll start imagining a dark, empty place. And you'll say, yes, I am that. That is where I'm witnessing from. Because you're frustrated, no? You need answers. How long can you go on? Yes. So you say, okay, somewhere you'll make a deal with yourself saying, okay, even if I'm fooling myself, at least I can live as if I'm getting somewhere. Yeah? So don't fall into those traps. Learn to come to this place, even if it feels like effort for a few weeks. Then this gift is irrepressible. Once you learn this, then whether it is prayer, inquiry, contemplative reading, contemplative listening, listening to bhajan, you know that it's all about getting you here. Because that is where true Atma Darshan will happen. God's presence will only be met here. It will not be met here no matter what you do. You see, you can squeeze everything possible in your head. You will not meet your Atma in your head.
whether this deliberate attempt to go inwards is same as deliberate attempt to be empty.
Yes, exactly.
Suppose I start with inquiry or ideas and then we leave the
Excellent.
sadhana.
That's a very excellent point. Thank you. So the deliberate attempt to go inward is the same as the deliberate attempt to be empty. That is a very important point. So what you may find is that you're just letting your thoughts come and go. Oh, you're reminding yourself to be open and empty. And naturally, you will fall into the same place. And even if you don't fall into the same place, although they may seem different, they are actually the same place. Where you are absent of conceptualization, you're not fooling yourself in visualization, not relying on these outer faculties for anything at all, fully dependent on the light of the heart itself. So this is very important. So if you allow yourself to just remain empty, you come to the same place. It is not, it's not a place. When you come into the same state of being.
So in that matter, God, when you were reading,
Yeah.
said that love, there's some kind of
Yeah.
I thought that was Vidyasana. There's some movement in that.
Yeah. Not
That's
necessarily. If you notice the anchor of love, if you notice some love is arising as an outpouring, and it seems natural to stay with that, then that becomes a beautiful anchor which will provide relief from mental distractions. So you can hang on to that. Or if you feel like by remembering God's name or by taking his name, there's a active love. You see, it seems like an active love that we can produce. And that is a beautiful anchor as well.
That's not the silent transmission act.
Well, when you say gish, gish, it's very difficult to decipher whether it, because sometimes to me also it seemed like a like
Movement, that
kind,
sensation which I'm
kind.
calling now.
Yeah, but I can't, this your heart itself has to tell you. You see, whether it is some sensational thing which is trying to distract you or whether it is true heart transmission, that unfortunately is beyond my pay grade also. I can't tell you. You see, but stay there and it will reveal itself. When our intent is to be with God more and more, then falseness cannot last for too long. So don't worry about it. Somebody says something.
I said, wow.
Okay. Thank you.
So in the deliberate attempt, you keep my attention on breath also, right? Or
Can.
better to
Because then keep breath.
take inside I don't know.
Many times I find myself doing this. Where after the words seem too gross of the prayer, and for a while some attention just goes to the breath before the attention leaves even breath.
So attention on breath and try actually not to buy thoughts.
Yes, exactly. Just attention on breath. Then there's no attention left for thoughts.
Master,
Yes.
I had to confess something.
Yeah.
You know when you do like the ADS prayer and it like helps you to not like get distracted by thoughts. Sometimes what I find is that I just like if I see that I haven't like gone to that holy place and I'm still
If I
although there's
find,
an
sorry, if I
if I
find,
find that I haven't been poured in, the Holy Spirit hasn't poured my
yeah,
faculties in,
yeah,
I just I feel like I cheat some. I just somehow in that I just say I just start saying sorry or something like that. Like I'm sorry. 'Cause I always feel like maybe I've done something wrong, That's why it's taking like a while to like do it. So when I say that, I find that something like softens up and immediately, like almost immediately, sometimes like I start to like feel that transmission happening, and I'm like, thank you. Something happens like that,
Well,
and
these are inward relationships that we are forming with God in some way. So the we just have to keep experimenting like this and seeing. But you're experimenting correctly. Whatever you feel pulls you in deeper, you feel free to try that. So if you feel like, you feel that, like sometimes I may say that, I'm so sorry, God, today I've forgotten you for so long. You see? And that's why I'm not feeling that deep connection with you. So sometimes it comes from my heart to say like that. And that softens something up. It's true. It happens here also. You see? But these things just happen from heart to heart. We can't pre-plan. No? It's not a strategy. It
yes,
just flows in that, organic. As we let go of this realm of Maya and we go to the inner realm, it's like we are meeting our beloved again. And the conversation sometimes seems to start where it left off the previous time. You see? Or it can start like a new conversation. So, yes, these are all beautiful constructs of this holy relationship which is being formed. But just make sure that it doesn't become like a tactic or a strategy. It just comes, heart to heart. It just happens like that.
yeah, I say that when after like saying the prayer, and I'm sorry, I feel like I've modified the prayer in the sense I've added more saints and sages in it. The saying that I feel like are always with me somehow. So I call all of them because I feel like if maybe one person is sleeping in heaven, the other person is gonna hear what I'm saying. I just a way of saying it like that. So when in that, I feel like because it also shows me like it's sort of highlighted in a very deep intuitive way of where I've not been with God, where I've actively actually left God because of maybe a habit or a conditioning. And so that's why something is in a repentant, not in something is in a repentant mode that is not, it's just like very childlike, I would say, in that sense. And so I just speak to God like that. And so this is what I thought also to check because when you say like to be empty for God, um, something that has changed. Like the first time when actually the first Satsang that I heard from you, it was very like it's like nothing, everything, like even this thing about relationship wasn't there. It's like I was just, I don't even know, like it's only by God's grace I was able to stay, like given how rigid I was like back then. And I don't know, it's only like the grace of God that allowed me to be able to stay and maybe the yearning in my heart. But the is different, like, and that's what I'm talking, because sometimes like even that they speaking to or to like tell God like please empty me of myself or something like that too, so that I can be with you. It's not there. It's like, and the reality of that only God is truly here is revealed in that moment. That is only there's only that is actually here. Compared to when it feels like I am tasting the Spirit of God, I'm one with the Spirit of God. And these are those things I want to just check because you said that it's very important to be empty for the truth. But this, it doesn't happen like by my own, like intentional wanting to for it to happen like that, where I'm only wanting to be moved by the spirit. Like it's very rarely happens like that, where something is just like that's what I'm saying. Like sometimes it's like I'm not there, like I'm pulled out somehow. Although I'm still conscious, but it's just like there's just consciousness here compared to when it feels like I'm connected to the truth like that. So I'm saying that it's like two ways.
when we are conceptually empty, empty of the identity, empty of ego, then our insides, our soul, our antakarna, also then uh, has an expression of its relationship with its beloved. Because the relationship of love and ultimately of union and oneness, whether that is in the form of a merging or a union, both or a recognition of the oneness, both are ultimately the same with different narratives that we may provide. But the soul has its own language of communication with the spirit. The Antakarna has its own language of communication with the Atma. So you'll get a sense of that loving communication being very different from the crude and gross communication which happens in the head. You see? So that heart communication doesn't get in the way of your being empty of conceptual knowledge. That innocence of the child is the best indicator of that because our head is never innocent like that. Our head is always got a different sort of grossness to it. So you can trust
Yeah.
this. You can keep reporting from time to time so we can make sure that it's not going in some other direction.
I find that when in Satsang that the quality of that is very clear. It's like you speak about, it's like the light that allows the recognition of the present is brighter when I'm here somehow compared to when I'm not here. And the consciousness seems, I don't know if it's the right, it seems more personal, like personalized, and here it's more impersonal somehow.
Yes.
And that's why the sense of connection is happening and I'm seeing all of like the movements happening, but it's hard. It's I don't have. This is what I'm seeing. Like what you see, like you actually have no control. You can just only offer yourself and just go into that and just be there and just be open. I'm really beginning to see that more and more.
Very good. Very good. So our inner light, our inner love, our inner communication, our intuitive insights, our intuitive love for God and God's love for us, which is the same, has a lot of parallels with worldly light. So it is often found that when we are sitting together in a group like this, in a sangha, in a satsang, then all the light seems to get amplified exponentially. Just like when there are candles together in the world, the light seems to be amplified. So that is the gift that God has given us of spiritual company. You see, the spiritual company is very valuable. So when we have spiritual companies, Sage Tulsidas Ji tells us that the company of saints and the company of the Sangha can take away all that afflicts us, all our suffering, because the light just amplifies so much when we collectively sit in love for God, sit in remembrance of God. Please come. You can just come. You don't have to raise hand.
Hi, Father.
Yeah.
I don't have particular question now. I was just some kind of like mind field, and I could not even follow satsang.
Yes, that was is good. If it is a was, then we're okay. You can always watch a recording. Uh, I personally felt it was quite a beautiful sharing that we had today. So may be worthwhile to catch the recording, but it's all right. We have thousands of satsang. It's fine.
Yeah, of course, it's not a big problem to not following now the satsang.
What can happen is that after a while, you may not need spiritual truths, words about God to contemplate. You may see, like I was seeing, the changing of the light on your screen, on your camera, and that itself can be a reminder of God and take us to a deep contemplative place. So then, as we deepen in this, the world and even our activities in the world can become ways of reminders of God's presence for us to go within. There's a lot of beauty that we see every day that we have normalized in our mental narrative. So, but there will come a point where you may be just having a shower or something, and you may see a small ray of light coming through a window, and that itself may bring you into a deep samadhi, a deep contemplative state. So as long as we remain open to meeting God, the opportunities will be provided, many, many more than needed. Sajan, Rebecca.
Hi, Ananta-ji.
Oh my God.
Hi. I'm so happy to be able to speak with you like this again. I just hope it's okay for you because you have to say.
As you said that, a lot of a lot of eyes went to their watches. So
Mm.
let's hear quickly before they throw me out of the room.
Yes, please take care. Continue because
Taking that power from me now. So if I tell them it's my prerogative when to leave, they don't listen. They just pick me up and throw me out.
Since you posted but maybe I just present Rebecca. I don't know if
We have
you've
not met.
seen it.
Hello, hello, my dear.
Hi,
Nice.
Ananta.
Very good, very good. You're always welcome here, and
Thank you.
just feel at home. Feel at home.
I do. Thank you.
Very good.
So, Father, when you posted on this heart contemplation about the infused prayer and
Yeah.
the deliberate prayer, something was a bit uh, triggered there, looking, and it stayed with me, and I wanted to find a space to just free flow a little bit. And first of all, do you feel it's important to make this distinction when we are deliberately eating and when God is eating, like you said, for us? You feel it's important to have that sense, or it can blur and it's fine?
It's a spectrum actually. It's a spectrum, and the point of many people used to ask Saint Teresa also the same question, that if after the prayer of recollection, the prayer of quiet, the prayer of union, the prayer of jubilation, if all of these are infused by God in us, then what is the reason that you tell us these things? Because the seeker identity gets a bit triggered, saying, but for whatever reason, that either I've got it or I haven't got it, whatever it wants to conclude because of that. So she said the idea is really not to frustrate or to trouble. The idea is just to keep us inspired that God is giving us so many beautiful gifts. So we must not lose hope. We must keep with our sadhana. We must keep with our prayer. And what she calls prayer is not what in the modern world we call prayer. Like in the modern world, we call prayer an activity, usually of spoken words to God. You see, that is not what she means by prayer. What she means by prayer is the wonderful states of our being that unfold in us as we are coming to union with God, as we are coming to, whether we say merging or whether we say recognition of I am that. These are the beautiful gifts of grace that come upon us as this process is unfolding. So, in a way, it may attack our spiritual seeker identity or pride in some way, but really the point of sharing it is to just encourage and to tell a child that there's a beautiful gift waiting for you. So don't lose hope. Keep at it.
Mm.
But
And
you're
there
right.
might be
When I see exactly the moment where that which seems like it's a bit deliberate, then seems completely natural. No, we cannot identify it so precisely. When the samadhi states come after that, when it goes to savikalpa, which is that the world seems to still, the sensation of the world still seem to be heard to a point where everything, including the breath, may not be noticed. Therefore, we can't conclude that they exist anymore. Those points are also spectrums, and there could be hundreds of steps along the way which we can't really conceptualize as we go through that entire unfolding.
Mm. Let's say I'm just gonna free flow, and there might be a lot of arrogance beneath my whatever I'm saying, but
As long as you forgive the arrogance in responses also, we're okay.
this I'm not sure if it's Sirvikalpa Samadhi, but this one of the most touching points for myself is when there is that seeing, knowing, feeling that there is only awareness, even in this what seems to be something, can be the body or the world. And there are like you said also, it's a spectrum. It can be more clear, more complete sense of only awareness, or can be a bit more mixed. with something, but still that deep sense is there. But what I wanted to more bring the looking for now is in this sense that I still feel it's in my power, not in my personal power, but I don't have a sense that it's somewhere in some other, like God in this other way of God there waiting for somebody else than what is deeply here. So it's not me personally, but it's still I impersonally. So somehow there is a bit that sense that it's still in, it's still natural. It's not if and when some distant God decides to give his grace or something like this. You know what I mean?
Well, okay, let's dive into it a bit more. So let's say that the state that you spoke about is Savikalpa Samadhi. Then do you mean that in exertion of whatever powers we have in our faculties right now, you can bring yourself to Savikalpa Samadhi?
It feels like that, yes. Not with using something, using a contemplation, using a guided meditation, using some looking. It feels I can I can bring myself there.
Yes,
It
and
does. It might be arrogant, it might be arrogance, but it's
let's look at that. So let's say that when we try to go inwards, initially, would you say that it does seem a bit deliberate that I have to turn my attention in
mm,
and keep like an inner focus to stay? And
yes,
then after a point, it just seems like I don't have to do any deliberate effort at all.
yes.
So then what is the difference between the two?
One is more real, the later where there's no effort and no distinction. That is what is there, the what is here, and the other one still uses some kind of
Okay, so let me refine the question a little bit more. Can you guarantee that if you spend the same effort or time in a seemingly deliberate inner turning, that the effortless recollection or the effortless inner turning has to appear?
no, no, no.
Yes, because
But
that is all the
but
one thing I mean when I say that that is a gift from God. It is not in our power. Because if it was in so-called our power, then we should be able to say that this is how I do it. It takes me 3.5 minutes. And this is the kind of effort I put, and then it becomes just organic and natural.
no, definitely like it. But I know that if like I'm using, if I stay there, if I stay there as long as I need, 2 hours, 3 hours, sometimes it's quicker, sometimes it's longer, because I know it's there and it's here. It's not a favor in a way. It's what is always here, and it's then eventually it does happen. So that I don't know. From there, I have this sense
Yeah. But
that it's
let's look
mm,
at it again. So if I was to say to lift this computer is in my power, then I would
mm,
know that I need to just put one hand and just carry this like this. That was kind of overestimation of the strength, but 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 quite predictable in that way, isn't it? That because I'm able to do this and immediately it'll lift. So if I was to say to all of you that I can lift this with my power, now Whether it happens in 10 seconds or 3 hours, I can't really tell you, but I'm doing it myself. Then would you buy that? Something, you may buy it actually, it's all right. But something seems a bit off, no? When if you were to say it, like if it was so much in my power, then 10 seconds to 3 hours is a big difference. You see, then there's something wrong with my prediction of my power. Then you getting a sense of what I'm saying? That
Maybe I'm missing something because
also, are you saying that every time you try, it does happen?
you're asking or you're
Yes, no,
saying?
no, I'm asking that
If
I
I
would.
know that if no, not like that, but in almost like I know there's this somehow there's no doubt that not not that if I try now for today, but there's no doubt that it is there, that God is here, and it is also not different than this I. It's more I than I in a way.
Yes, that's
So
undeniable.
that's all I'm saying. So from there, it has a sense that not it's in my power that whatever I in a limited way, like what I do determines that, but that I don't know. It's not up to something else.
Oh, well, okay. This is point, yes, we spoke about the other day also with another brother that so, and his point was a little more forceful when he was saying that, but why do we have to pray in a way, be devotional and, be faithful or ask for God's mercy when in reality it is I itself? You see, so then my question to him was that is that I the Lord of the universe or not? Like, is everything happening by the will of that in the light of that?
Yes.
But yes. And then I said that in if I was to use Shuddh Advaita, Keval Advaita, which is pure non-duality, then we have to say that I am that one fully, and there is no distinction whatsoever. Is it? So, but then I would say that, so then what I told this brother was that there's a bunch of wires lying in front of you. Just make them dance.
Mm.
Because the Lord of the universe is making trillions of planets dance around us apparently. Gravity, electricity, magnetism, light, all of these forces operate on principles which are defined by him.
Mm.
In a bunch of wires start moving is no big deal. And if in our recognition that I am that, we start. So, what we are really saying is that I am a part of God, and there is no distinction between God and myself. But there's a big difference between saying I am God in that way, that there is no distinction, but and saying that I am God, because then God Himself has created all of this play of the universe with His will,
Mm.
versus that even post recognition that I am that alone. I cannot bring life to that which is without life, and I cannot take life from that which has life. I cannot command the Atma to reveal itself to somewhere where it has not been revealed, and I cannot take away the revelation where it has. And that is why, in my expression, in my insight, I have to rely more on uh, one part of Advaita Vedanta in India, which is not the most popular because nobody really likes it, where it is said that we are completely that, and yet we are not fully that. Or we are fully that, and yet we are not fully that, which the intellect hates, because then what are we saying? You see, are we fully that or not fully that? So, you see, so
Yes.
so it is beyond, and that's why the sages who would share like that added a word which was achinta, achinta abheda abheda, achinta bheda abheda, which means non-conceptualizable
Mm.
distinction and yet non-distinction.
And with this, Father, I'm very easy with this, and it also is very beautifully put like this. That the I will never be that totality. That
I am that, and yet I will never be that. Yes.
yes, yes,
Both.
yes, yeah,
It's very good.
yes. So it's totally beautiful, and by no means I want to imply that in any way the personal I is somehow responsible for any goodness or any insight or anything. It's by seeing through that one. But then it's also maybe this is where it is that it's not because if that one is seen through, then also the other God is seen through. So God is the other. So then it's neither coming from me personally and neither from somebody else than me. So it's neither that.
So
How
whether we
you
say
see?
both or neither, it brings us to the same place. No? That if we say
Mm,
it is both distinct and non-distinct, or we say it's neither distinct nor non-distinct, actually it leaves us without our intellect, either way.
mm,
Yes.
mm,
But nowhere am I meaning to imply any distance or meaning to imply that there is a distant God that we appeal to, the intimacy beyond intimacy, the oneness beyond our notion of oneness is fully
mm.
apparent in intuitive insight. So, so that is not the idea at all.
Yes, I'm sorry, maybe it's my own still some remnants of this God used in Christianity, which has a bit of a distance to it. That when I'm still maybe some of that is here. That when the word God is said, it evokes a bit of that distant some in that language. So I'm sure that's not in you how you mean it. So
The, not neither the insight nor the intention to convey any distance or any real separation. It is only to convey a sheer oneness and yet a sheer servitude. And maybe that is the part where it can get confusing again, that if there is oneness, how can there be servitude? And if there is servitude, then how can there be oneness? We've spoken a bit about that, and maybe in the next satsang, I can share a bit more again on that aspect of it. Uh,
you said that as long as there's a me, the highest is to be in service to God, or I don't know if you put it in that way, but I feel it in that
exactly.
way.
I also
Yeah.
want to add to that that there is nobody that no sage that I've come across or heard about or read about in whom the me became completely absent.
Mm.
You see? So acceptance of that is very important. And in India, it is very clearly said that only God Himself is completely free from Maya. So, so if it is true for the highest sages that ever lived, we must be very careful. I must be very careful before ever making the presumption that I must be the first one where the me fully went away. Which is not true. If I look at my life, I can tell it's not true. You see? So,
And
so the only safe spot, the only refuge for that me is servitude and love and devotion towards God. And the way to make that me into the worst possible me is to make that me an Advaita me. That means that me who knows a lot of conceptual Advaita.
well, that one is probably here a lot also.
But if you can,
Uh,
then you're doing fine. The danger is for those who can't spot it.
in a way, I also felt it's normal that the me just jumps on whatever because that's where the interest is, that's where the love is, so then also the me will grow there,
Exactly.
whatever it would yeah.
It is- Thank
Thank you.
you, Mela. Thank you. Sorry, I'm rushing a bit because I feel like the body should
Yes,
go.
please, it's good.
I enjoyed this interaction. I feel like this can be quite confusing for many, so I'm happy to reiterate from my insight as much as possible. So,